in a very short period of time, but some good news overnight that the conditions are easing, especially along the coastal areas. The Brisbane River was at 2.25 metres, so that's also good news, and Gympie came down to 8 metres, so that's also good news. On the Sunshine Coast, there was about 100 millimetres of rain, and there should be some, there may be some storms and showers this evening, but the Bureau will update on that. Can I say from the outset, can I say to all of the parents in the southeast that I apologise for the inconvenience, but I think everybody would realise if you're in my shoes and you were given the advice that was given to us yesterday, I think everyone would have taken exactly the same decision. But I do acknowledge there has been some inconvenience today for parents, but safety has to come first. And at the end of the day, you can only act on the advice that you are given, and that advice given to me and to the senior management staff was that it was going to be very, very severe thunderstorms and hail yesterday, and thankfully that didn't eventuate. So in good news, and there is some good news, that the Mud Army can begin at first light tomorrow morning. We're also encouraging people to get their tetanus injections, and the Health Minister will give an update about that in a moment. Now, also in our evacuation centres, we still have 266 people, and so those numbers are coming down, and QFES provided 2 water rescues overnight, and the Police Commissioner will update that. Tragically, we've also lost another life overnight as well, and any loss of life during these events is heart-wrenching, not just for the families but for their friends as well. Okay, so in some good news in terms of our in terms of our assistance, there has been $2.2 million paid out to 5,403 applicants, and there are 19,000 applicants in total. I've also written to the Prime Minister seeking Category D assistance for $559 million on a 50-50 basis, and the Deputy Premier will outline what's available for small business, primary producers, not-for-profit organisations, supporting community clubs and local councils. So as you can see, our initial assessment is that this is actually a very, very big impact. In terms of our damage assessments to date, in terms of properties, there have been 5,394 damage assessments, and we've come back with, so far to date, and of course there's going to be more, 703 severe, 886 moderate, 1,033 minor, so it has had a big impact. So in relation to those grants I was talking about earlier, those Category D, I wrote to the Prime Minister about that yesterday, and I'm quite sure we'll hear from him shortly, acknowledging, of course, he's going through COVID at the moment, but that $559 million would be on a 50-50 partnership split. Okay, then in relation to transport, Minister Bailey will update. You know, the trains are beginning to recommence. The Ferny Grove line will recommence. There's some issues around O'Reilly's, and some emergency repairs are happening there. Minister for Education's available. We still have 140 schools that have been impacted, 64 state schools, and the remainder are non-government. Minister Brenny updated us at our QDMC meeting this morning. During this event, we had 180,000 people without power. That's actually a lot of people, a lot of homes. And at the moment, there is only 16,000 without power. And I know those crews are working around the clock to get power back on. In relation to the Australian Defence Force, they continue to assist. And can I say the assistance is fantastic. So at the moment, they've got about 260 people deployed to Gympie, Ipswich, Lockyer, and starting in Brisbane today and tomorrow, and they have another 140 to deploy. So we thank the Australian Defence Force for their assistance, and we'll also be getting the assistance of 2 Royal Australian Navy vessels to come and help out and survey the Brisbane River. So once again, excellent news. After we've finished, the Health Minister will update, of course, on tetanus if people are going about cleaning up their homes or assisting with any mud armies that are set up across the state with different local governments. But also too, there's been a case of Japanese encephalitis. So she'll talk a little bit about that. And finally, 6 o'clock tonight, some good news, everyone. The masks can come off. But just please remember, if you're in crowded situations, please think about whether or not you use it. It's totally up to yourselves. But our numbers continue to track downwards with COVID, which is, again, excellent news. So I'll hand over to the Bureau and then the Police Commissioner, the Acting State Disaster Coordinator, and then the Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Premier. Good morning, everyone. So the key message from the Bureau of Meteorology today is that we are expecting to see showers and storms around the southeast, developing late in the morning and moving into the afternoon. They will not be as intense or as widespread as what we saw yesterday. It's a return to what we would typically describe as a more normal storm situation. So like I said, developing mid-morning, pushing through with possibility of being severe, but typically just those showers and storms. However, these showers and storms are falling on sodden catchments. So all of our catchments, creeks and rivers are what we call saturated, so they have no ability to take on and absorb any water. So any water that does fall from showers or storms today could lead still to flash flooding. These conditions are very favourable, and I think another key message really is that it doesn't take a severe storm for us to see some heavier impacts. So like I said, this isn't a typical situation. We've seen a whole week of flooding and our catchments are the most saturated they've been in a very long time. So just really trying to reiterate that message that although there is the possibility of some severe storms today, they don't need to be severe for us to see impacts across the southeast. So if we do see any severe storms, the phenomena that holds the severity today is really that heavier rainfall and the damaging winds. So we saw some hail yesterday in our severe storms, but that risk has reduced today, and we are focusing more on damaging winds and the possibility of heavy rainfall. So I'll go through just a quick riverine update. So as was mentioned, the Brisbane River peaked last night just above minor at 9.1. It's still very variable on the tide, so the high tide today around midday will bump that peak up a little bit more to 2.25, but we are generally seeing a decreasing trend across the Brisbane River as well as general easing across the east coast. Of note as well is Ipswich, so that's sitting at the moment between the minor and moderate level. And we have seen a bit of rain from yesterday affect that catchment, so it's not decreasing as quickly as we would have expected. There is sort of a stable, almost static, but stable sort of decrease there at Ipswich, but that is likely to start decreasing. And then also a note today, further to the west, we've now got the Condamine, Boulogne, Weir and Mooney in the flood warning as well. So some of those catchments flowing west, not flowing east, are now, we're starting to see some rises. So towns such as St George, as well as, I've lost my notes there. So St George is one of them. So I will go through now, that's pretty much the flooding summary. What we're seeing today we will expect again tomorrow, and showers and storms on the forecast for the rest of the week as well. Moving now, just a quick mention that as well as what we're seeing in the southeast, we've also got a very severe heat wave in the north of Queensland worth mentioning. So we're seeing temperatures well above average, both minimum and maximum, meaning that a lot of the towns between sort of Mackay to Cairns aren't getting any relief from that heat. So for example, Innisfail, Cairns, looking to be 36 degrees today, where their March average is 30.5, so pretty significantly above average. And we've also seen records fall for March. So yesterday, Emerald got to 42.1 degrees, which broke their March record. Mackay Airport on the Central Coast 34.7, also breaking a record. And then we also had some minimum records broken, not this morning, but the previous night. Of note, Townsville Airport, 28 degrees minimum. So that was also a March record broken. And that's it for the Bureau today. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And as the Premier has touched on, sadly, there has now been 10 deaths in total as a result of this weather event in Queensland. A body of a 53-year-old man was found under a wharf last night at Port of Brisbane. He was reported missing on Monday. We are continuing with our anti-looting operation, Operation Uniform Nash, and as I have mentioned a number of times, this is really a preventative approach, a proactive approach, patrolling those areas that are vulnerable where people have not returned either to their homes or businesses yet. The officers are not only on the ground but obviously on the water as well as polair above. What we have found since we commenced this operation on the 1st of the 3rd, we have arrested 7 people for looting offences, for 18 related incidents. I just want to touch on that the actual maximum imprisonment for this is twice that under normal circumstances because it is a disaster. So stealing, those stealing can be charged and liable to a maximum of 10 years imprisonment. So it is considered a lot more serious because those people are in a vulnerable situation because of the disaster. Obviously, the roads are starting to build up with congestion in the southeast. The roads are heavily damaged, and I ask that people please be very, very careful and patient out on the roads. Any rain will cause flash flooding, and that is one of our most serious issues when we're out in the roads. All of these deaths are flood related. Some completely unexpected where water has risen very, very quickly in areas that we're not used to. So over the next few days, as the showers and storms and rain continues, please be aware of that flash flooding, be aware of your circumstances, go to the Bureau website and just look after each other, obey the rules and please be patient. Thank you.
Commissioner, just to clarify, was that the man who had fallen off the boat?
No, it's not. It's a different person. So the person that fell off the vessel was reported missing a couple of days earlier. So this is in addition to that. So we still have one person outstanding.
And how did they go missing? Was their car pushed away?
No, we understand he was on a tinny in the river. Thank you.
Deputy Commissioner?
Thank you, Premier. Good morning. We continue to coordinate our operations across this event. As the Premier indicated, we still have 266 people in our evacuation centres. Despite the weather clearing and just having thunderstorms, we've still got a number of resupply issues to isolated communities from Gympie, Logan, Ipswich area. And now that we're starting to just lean forward into the western areas around Roma, where we're seeing some of the water moving that way and looking at the preparation for our resupply issues there. We're still working very well with the Australian Defence Force. We're seeing more troops assisting with the clean-up effort there, and we expect that to continue over the next few days and an increase particularly around the Brisbane and Logan area. Yesterday we saw the ADF move into the Ipswich, Somerset, Lockyer Valley area, which was very beneficial to us. As the Bureau pointed out, we are still expecting showers and some thunderstorms this afternoon, so we can expect, if we do get heavy falls in isolated areas, we can still expect our creeks and our riverines to rise. So this morning while you're out cleaning up, my message is, can you please really keep an eye on the BOM website, keep an eye on the weather, and the roads that may have been open this morning or the areas that may have been out of water this morning. If we do get those heavy storms in isolated areas, we can see that water rapidly rise. So please, while it's good to get out there and clean up today, and it's great to see that happening, we still need just to be aware of our surroundings and the creeks and rivers. So thank you. Thank you.
Deputy Premier?
As you heard from the Premier, thousands of Queenslanders are already benefiting from the initial round of grants that were targeted to individuals and families. Today we are able to outline the next phase of grants targeting small businesses and organisations. The package itself was finalised yesterday, and the Premier wrote to the Prime Minister asking for his endorsement. These grants are 50-50 funded between the state and the Commonwealth. The package itself that we have asked for endorsement from the Commonwealth for is a $559 million assistance package targeting small businesses, primary producers, sporting organisations and supporting local government with their immediate response. So more than $500 million directed at supporting small businesses and organisations. Eligible small businesses and not-for-profit organisations will be eligible for up to $50,000 in grant funding. We anticipate 6,100 such organisations may be eligible for the grants, so we have allocated $257 million in business support. We know businesses and organisations out there affected by this disaster are struggling, and we want them to know that we will be there to support them and to support them quickly. To give you some sense of scale, this is the biggest small business support package post-disaster since 2011, so a very significant investment there. Primary producers affected by this disaster will be eligible for grants of up to $75,000, including a $15,000 upfront payment that we think roughly 2,000 primary producers will be eligible for. Sporting and community organisations will be able to apply for grants of up to $20,000, and we've allocated $32 million for those grants. We have also allocated $1 million for each of the affected local government areas as a cash injection to assist them with the immediate clean-up effort. Once the Commonwealth has approved this Category D package, we'll be able to outline how small businesses and organisations can apply for the grants, and of course we'll be there to assist them. This is the first round of this kind of assistance, and we anticipate more may be required as we get a better sense, a better hold on exactly what kind of damage businesses have suffered and how we can best support them through the recovery.
Thank you. Commissioner Leach.
Good morning. Overnight, our fire and rescue Swiftwater trained firefighters responded to 2 water-based rescue incidents. We also received 198 requests for assistance to the State Emergency Service support line. Over the extent of this incident, we've now responded to over 650 water-based rescues, and we've received almost 12,000 requests for assistance to the SES. We still have around 900 tasks outstanding, so it will take us another 2 to 3 days to get to you. So if you are waiting for SES assistance, please be patient, we will get to you. We're also turning our attention to recovery operations and supporting the damage assessment operations. We've got crews out on the ground visiting properties and collecting that information. And we also have rural fire service and fire and rescue firefighting crews out assisting with wash-ups. We're also mindful of the current weather conditions, and we will pivot back to response operations in the event that we get storm activity today and we see rises in creeks or rivers. But the focus for us is now about supporting properties and businesses with washouts so that residents can start to return to some normality. Thank you.
Health. Minister Dove.
Thank you, Premier. So it's wonderful to see so many people wanting to volunteer to help their communities. We want them to be safe in doing that. So if you are planning on joining the Mud Armies or going out and helping or cleaning your own place, make sure your tetanus is up to date. Make sure that you are reducing the risks of cuts being infected or getting a cut or wound as part of the clean-up. So wearing gloves, closed-in shoes. We want people to make sure that they're looking after themselves. We know after the 2011 floods, we saw a number of people coming into our EDs with seriously infected wounds and cuts. So if you do get any, you can go see your GP, or if it's serious, obviously go to emergency department, but the most important thing you can do is update your tetanus shot before you go and volunteer to help out in this flood recovery. I can also report that we do have a public health alert out that's been issued following the first confirmed human case of Japanese encephalitis virus in Queensland. There is now 9 piggeries with confirmed infections of Japanese encephalitis in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria. The one in Queensland is in Goondiwindi, but there is another one just across the border at Tenterfield. The confirmed case had recently travelled in regional southern Queensland and is currently being treated in a Brisbane hospital. This virus is spread through the bite of an infected mosquito to people and animals. In animals, it mostly occurs in pigs and horses. Clinicians at Queensland hospitals have been asked to be alert to the possibility of the Japanese encephalitis virus in people presenting with encephalitis or a similar illness. Most human infections of this virus cause no symptoms or mild symptoms such as a headache or fever. However, a person with severe disease may present with inflammation of the brain, characterised by sudden onset of vomiting, high fever and chills, severe headache, sensitivity to light, neck stiffness and nausea, vomiting. Children aged under 5 years of age and older people who are infected with this virus are at higher risk of developing more severe illness. What can you do to stay safe? We encourage Queenslanders to take necessary steps to prevent being bitten by mosquitoes, especially given the recent flooding event, which may lead to an increase of mosquito numbers in coming weeks. Measures to prevent mosquito bites include regularly applying insect repellent containing DEET, D-E-E-T, Picaridin or oil of lemon eucalyptus. Wearing loose, light-coloured clothing to cover up your arms, legs and feet, and using other insecticide-based mosquito control devices where possible when outside. And so, especially with these flood events, there's going to be a lot of static water sitting around homes, so we ask that as we do the clean-up, you remove that water to reduce the risk of mosquitoes. Of course, mosquito bites can occur any time of the day, but some species are more active at dusk and dawn. Around your home, it's important to inspect for common mosquito breeding sites, cleaning up debris, making sure you empty, wipe out, store any outdoor containers in a drier place. It's important to ensure your fly screens, if you can, are in good order as well. This is a nationally notifiable disease in both humans and animals. It's important to understand the human case follows a detection at a piggery in southern Queensland last week. There have also been detections, as I say, in New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. There is no risk to humans from consuming pork or pig products. Pork products are safe to eat. The virus cannot be spread directly from person to person. Queensland Health is working collaboratively with the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries and Industry, as well as state and territory and national counterparts to discuss a national response, and support is being provided to intensive livestock industry workers. So we do ask, there's simple measures you can take, and we've just spoken to the mayors about spraying for mosquitoes as we move past this flood event as well to reduce the risks. But if you have any of those conditions, those symptoms, please take them seriously and present at a doctor or an emergency department. Thanks.
Thanks, Ed. Happy to take some questions.
The school situation yesterday, there was a lot of confusion from parents. Do you think the government could have done better? Do you think you could have done better around the messaging with the schools?
Oh, of course, we can always do better. I always acknowledge that. But people are only human. And, you know, we have to take the advice of the experts, and that's what we did. And, you know, safety has to come first. And everyone can remember what happened with that tail end of Cyclone Debbie that time when the creeks and rivers did rise rapidly. We were advised that there was going to be destructive winds, large hailstones, and the last thing I would want would be for a young child to lose their life during an event such as that.
Premier, just to clarify, are you apologising for schools being closed today or for the confusion yesterday around Brisbane?
Both.
With the actual parents in the southeast yesterday, all the schools were sending messages. There's a lot of confusion about whether parents actually have to pick up their kids. Was that all just a misunderstanding, a mistake? Did they not have to pick up their kids yesterday?
Well, I was doing the press conference. You all heard what I had to say, and unfortunately there was some miscommunication, and I have apologised for that.
Were the schools in Brisbane told to send their kids home? Because sometimes some of the schools around Brisbane were telling parents to come in and get their kids.
I thought I was very clear in the press conference that it was for the northern parts of Caboolture up into Bundaberg. Unfortunately, there was some misinterpretation, there was some miscommunication. I cannot do anything more than apologise.
When you said that $500 million, has the state looked, just to clarify, is that going to be split 50-50?
Yes, it's 50,
250, 250.
Correct, yeah. And look, that's like, it's a large amount, so it just goes to show you what a large scale event this was. There's a lot of people that have been impacted. As I said, I've spoken to business owners up around the Gympie region. I've spoken to people impacted around the Ipswich region. There's a lot of people right throughout the state. I'm hoping to get to Logan over the weekend. This is a big event, and when you're there speaking with people one-on-one, they're very emotional, they're very upset. It makes you think long and hard about what's important in your life. And tragically, we've had people that have lost their lives, but thankfully there weren't more people in terms of people may have lost their possessions, but they still have each other.
More broadly, though, will more money be spent, though? How much money do you anticipate the government's going to have to spend on the roads?
Well, this is just like the first round.
Do you think it's going to be beyond $1 billion at this point?
I've said that. If you're looking now, this is the first lot, it's around $559 million. Then when you take into account people's insurance claims, you take into account the repairs to the roads, the networks, the trains. We've had landslides. It would easily be into the billions.
Treasurer might forecast a budget surplus across the forwards. Do you think we can kiss that goodbye now?
Well, the Treasurer will look at all of those issues, but the economy is in a good situation at the moment. But this is like another big impact. So look, we'll go through all of that and have a look at it, but at this stage everything would be okay. Yeah.
And with those schools that are flood impacted, what's the ongoing plan for them to try and get students back in, particularly grade 12 has been disrupted?
Oh look, it's to have so many schools out, which goes again to the severity of the damage. Even in the private school sector, there's a lot. It's about 50-50, Minister Grace. And, you know, children can't return till it's safe. So individual schools will be making those decisions. But look, education does a great job of getting in there quickly and fixing things up. So look, we'll be able to give more updates over time.
Will there be any sort of like makeshift schools set up in the interim?
Yes, yeah.
What's the plan for schools on Monday? Will they all be open? Or
at this stage, yes. No, at this stage, everything will be open except for those schools that have been impacted. And like I said, if anyone is in my situation and gets the information we were given, I believe they would have taken the same steps.
What was that information, just to be clear?
Well, I went through it all. Yeah, it was very comprehensive, very comprehensive, and it was described as a severe weather briefing.
In
severe,
terms of, the clean-up efforts, so what's your advice to people who want to get it back out there? Because a lot of clean-up efforts were cancelled based on that advice yesterday. So what's your advice to people who want to get it back out there today?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so people can get out there today. Again, please subscribe to the Bureau and watch what the Bureau says. And like I said, I contacted the Lord Mayor of Brisbane to say that from first light tomorrow, the Mud Army can go out. But can I please just urge people, please make sure you've got your tetanus. Go to your local GP if you haven't. Get a tetanus shot, and it's going to be great to see so many people helping.
From my understanding, in the budget, it was $10 million over 3 years for disaster prevention. Given how disaster prone the state is, do you think there needs to be more money spent in the upcoming budget to sort of protect more parts of the state from this sort of disaster?
We always build back better. So I think the key example I gave the other day was down in Logan. We actually built back some of the bridges after Tropical Cyclone Debbie, and they've actually withstood this impact. But of course there's going to be impacts to roads. There's, a main roads budget, there's an education budget. So look, we'll go through all of those issues, and the Treasurer will update you.
So much so is spent on the clean-up. Do you think we need to be spending more before these things happen to better prepare?
Well, this was a bit unprecedented. You know, I think you've even seen the New South Wales Premier said it's unprecedented. Let's face it, it's climate change. I mean, I've never seen so many natural disasters. We seem to be dealing with more and more cyclones, more floods. You know, a couple of years ago, the Commissioner and I were just talking the other day, we had the catastrophic fire event in central Queensland. Queensland never seen catastrophic before. But we're a great state, we're a resilient state, and you know, I'll tell you what, one thing is the people of this state inspire me every day, and to see how they're just getting up, getting on with things, you know, it's actually outstanding. Couple more.
With that, the climate change and whatnot,
Yeah.
do there need to be any changes, I guess, to how the state, in terms of like plans, land use and all that to deal with this?
Well, there's coastal mapping that's happening. Of course, we're looking at where the impacts are. And thankfully, we haven't, touched wood, we haven't had a serious cyclone this year across the coast, but we saw that Tropical Cyclone Debbie cost billions of dollars in damage, and communities get impacted. But the roads and the networks get built back better.
We've spoken to people in low-lying parts of Brisbane who
Yeah.
are pretty anxious about their insurance payments after the last floods when they didn't get a cent. What's your message to those people? Do you think they'll be better protected?
In terms of,
Their insurance payouts. Now, after the 2011 floods, a lot of people
I
thought
think,
they were
yeah,
covered and
from
they weren't.
memory, I think
They
the
clarified the flooding deficit.
yeah, are you able to answer?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I met with the Insurance Council earlier in the week to talk with them about what steps they had taken as an industry to address a lot of the confusion that was caused in previous flooding events where there was disputation between insurers and their customers regarding how they were flooded, whether it was from river or creek rises versus localised stormwater inundation, leaking roofs, that kind of thing. They have since then clarified the definition of flooding, which should address some of that dispute. However, there will also be people in low-lying areas who've previously flooded who either were unable to access flood insurance or the price of that flood insurance escalated subsequent to those flooding events, and obviously those individuals will be those that will be in greatest need of support and assistance in coming weeks.
What can be done to improve the cost of insurance?
The Premier touched on some of the measures that we have put in place in the past to support ensuring that our infrastructure is more resilient. There is clearly a need for our planning system to properly consider not just the history of disasters but the projections going forward of how these disasters are likely to become more often and more severe. And certainly I'm looking forward to talking with local governments, mayors, about how they can better incorporate into their planning schemes these likely impacts. I have visited flooded areas in recent days that frankly should not have been built upon, and so we need to both address that, work with those residents and councils for how we can mitigate flooding risks for them, but also ensure that going forward we're not building new homes on locations that are prone to flooding or indeed other natural disasters.
Just on that point, could there be some planning
Last
changes?
one.
Could there be some planning changes around, you know, where communities are built?
That may well be necessary, and that's an area where, as Planning Minister, I'd like to work with local government to ensure that we aren't continuing to build in locations that are likely to suffer from these events. Thank you all.
Okay, would you resume any land?
That's not on the cards at the moment. We want to start working on the planning system.
You talk about climate change. Does that change your position or lessen the support for the coal industry? Because obviously there's a lot of people say how can we...
No, as I've said previously, Queensland has it all. We've got a 50% renewable energy target by 2030. We've got a $2 billion renewable energy fund. You know, Queensland is lucky. We have coal, we have gas, and we have huge renewable investment, which is going to really rapidly increase over the next 10 years.
Premier, one of your MPs put up a social media post in which they use or make reference to what could be described as swear words. Is it appropriate for MPs to use that type of language? And are you aware of this?
No, I'm not. I'm not aware of that.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.